I feel terrible. I was so
Nah.
excited to come on. I'm like 4:00 p.m. Pacific time, and you're like, that was Eastern time, you idiot. I'm like, damn it.
It is all good. Oh, you're Pacific as well?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. We need a
Mm-hmm.
standardized podcast time zone that everybody uses.
Pod
Live
time,
streamer time.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're all on idiotic schedules anyway.
It's fucking absurd.
Mhm.
And yeah, yeah, it's all good, man. We just got some. We got some planning for tomorrow's show done, and then we're still technically in the middle of recording a segment.
Oh, cool.
Impromptu thing. We'd found these a while back. We'd found several websites. Maybe you've heard of them. I don't know. They're like Rotten Tomatoes, but they tell you how woke or not something is.
See, I wanted to do that as a goof, but like I realized somebody was absolutely just going. I wanted to make a video series called "Woke or Not," and like take movies that like I went and I saw the new Avatar movie, right?
Yep.
And it's like every time a female does anything competent, you go strong female character, and you go down a notch. And a man doing something competent, and you go up a notch. Yeah.
Well, you can't. You can't call it that.
You can't do parody anymore.
Well, I mean, I'm saying you can't use that name because
is that what it is? Woke or not?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Right. God damn.
So we of course went to The Last Jedi just because that's the metric of all things at this
wokeness.
Point. It's the nexus of all this shit, right?
Which is weird because I don't think of The Last Jedi as a woke movie. Like. It really is The Last Jedi's where everything went wrong, huh?
Well, that brings up a good point. What is woke to you?
I would say, I mean, first of all, yes, I categorically reject the stupidity of that term because it's indefinable. But as I would want people to, if they're going to use it, I would hope they would mean that there is some element of political content in it that directly relates to like some modern day politics that are ongoing right now. Whether it's, some sort of, I don't even know. It's hard to say because diversity has always been like an important thing. And I don't want people to get hung up on diversity because that's not like a modern day, like a thing that just started happening. We've always been trying to make movies more diverse. So I don't know what woke is anymore. Yeah, it's impossible to define.
I've tried. I've legit done a couple of videos, or at least a stream where I broke up into some videos, but like where my former co-host and I would just kind of like we're legit trying to figure it out. So we went to r/Mahler for one, and there was like a post. What does woke mean to you guys? I don't quite. It could have been a play at the post, very well could have been, but the responses were fucking enlightening because it'd be like. A guy would be like, he would go on this diatribe. It's whenever they do this and do this, like whenever they make a guy look silly to make a woman look good, that's woke. And all
they
this
always
stuff.
Bring that up, and that's crazy. Like these guys really. What drives me most nuts about all these guys is I'm like, none of you could write your way out of a paper bag. Like I'm a writer. I love writing. I love storytelling, and like with the Mario movie, they go Peach and Mary Sue, and I go, well, Peach isn't the main character. It's very reasonable to have secondary characters who are very capable and frame the main character, as like what position of their journey they're in. So she's better at the obstacle course than Mario. That makes perfect sense. She lives in that world. But they'll say, it's woke and she's humiliating the man and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's just a ridiculous way to try and look at media. This is not.
What were we just talking about, Bob? That where I mentioned that was an older example of that. Fuck. What was it? So we were talking about aliens. We talked about
where the woman is capable.
Oh, it was Aliens. So like the perfect example of a classic movie that I'm sure that all these guys would love, say they love, is Aliens, because you've got Hudson having a fucking, or is that Hicks? Hudson having a fucking full-on panic attack and fucking, we're all gonna die, we're game over, man. And then like basically all of the Marines are fucking dying left and right, so that Ripley looks like the badass, and it's fucking fine. It's a movie. Like
that's what these guys they've gotten into this idea. I think you ever see the movie Dead Poets Society where they have
long time ago.
Yeah, and he goes, here's how to measure poetry, and it's like you can find poetry on it. You can graph out the poem's excellence on a line graph, and that'll tell you how good a poem is. And obviously, he rips out of the book because he goes, you can't value art using any sort of metric or standard deviation. But all these guys, again, and they're obsessed with this idea that there's some sort of thing as objectivity in art. That's the thing that Mahler talks about constantly. Oh, I can objectively tell you if a movie is good.
Oh, we know
you can't. Absolutely not. That means you're fundamentally dumb, honestly, when you say that.
We've talked about it at length, really. Like that was another thing we did try to figure out what does that mean, right? But it doesn't mean anything.
It means that they're dumb. But basically, they think they've hit on this idea that the only thing that makes movies bad, or at least 99% of it, is this mythical idea of wokeness. So I see so many comments that go, yeah, the movie was terrible, and the characters were terrible, and the action was terrible, and I hated all the actors, and the director's a moron, but at least it wasn't woke. And I go, well, who cares whether it was woke or not? You just said it's the worst movie that ever happened.
Well, that's the thing. Another one of those posts that I looked at in that Mahler subreddit, in fact, was like, this guy goes, he's like, he goes on a diatribe describing what woke is and stuff. And then he's like, but, that said, that's just what I think of it. I don't really know for sure. And then he goes, but also The Boys. And then what else did he say? The Boys and something else. Those are woke shows. And I think they're fucking great. And it's like, so what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, even if I agreed that woke is a thing, you're still saying it's not inherently bad. So like,
right.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, that was the other thing I've always thought about is like, why not make a video that's, the best movies that are obviously woke, but good. But then people will argue and they say, well, they're not woke then. And that's what it really comes down to. Like, the new Top Gun movie came out and all these guys, they crow on and on. They go, oh, this is what Hollywood should be. And this is incredible. And it's finally a non-woke film. I went just to, because, they always dig up like, even if the movie doesn't have woke stuff in it, they'll dig up like interviews or whatever else. And I went and I looked for Top Gun and there's an interview with one of the cast members. And I go, well, we thought it was important to add diversity to Top Gun. And, we wanted to have all the races represented. And I go, see, if the movie was bad, they would go and they would grab this interview and they go, this is the reason why.
You know what it is?
Good. They ignore all this, their little conspiracy theories that they.
It's not even about it being good, really. It's about it's not Disney at this point. Yeah. That's basically what it, and then, I don't know if you noticed with Avatar, the sequel, they really kind of couldn't get on the same page with that one because it's Disney, but like it's not thought of really generally as the Disney movies. So like, and it's obviously very popular. And so like you had kind of a fence sitting and then like, back and forth between different, fandom menace guys and whatnot. But yeah, it's a whole.
It is great when they disagree because then you go, well, I don't understand. You guys told me that if you know how to identify when a movie's woke instantly, you're experts at it, right? So there should be no disagreement whatsoever. It's this obvious quality that you can all discern. But some of you think Mario's woke, some of you think Mario isn't woke. Like I think these guys present themselves as experts on this mythical categorization
they can even spot it whenever it's just sometimes when the trailer comes out, sometimes when the movie's announced, they're like, that's woke, right?
Yes.
It's
I was
pretty
furious with that heels versus babyface guy because there's that new who's the guy who did the Batman animated series originally?
Bruce Timm.
Bruce Timm. Yeah, Bruce Timm. So Bruce Timm's doing a new Batman animated series. Incredible. What Batman fan would not be excited for a new Batman animated series? And then because of what's going on at Warner Brothers, there was a little bit of a shakeup where thankfully, Warner Brothers isn't going to produce it. We're going to have somebody else produce it. It's moving over to a different studio. He thought it had been canceled, this heels versus babyface guy. And he makes a big video. Woke Batman is canceled. And they go, you're upset with the Batman animated series? What are you talking about? And of course, he has one, interview with Bruce Timm where he says, yeah, we wanted to modernize it and make sure people of all creeds and colors are involved. And I'm like, for that, you want to cancel Batman? I don't think you're an actual Batman fan if you want to cancel a Bruce. He wanted the show to be canceled because of one interview with Bruce Timm, and he said it was going to be woke, trash, garbage. There's no trailers. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's literally, we're making it. And that's enough for them to call it woke now.
It sounds like cancel culture to me.
Yes. It's infuriating.
But like we had just gotten to this one. Turf Nation was on with us too. He had to leave because it's like 5 o'clock in the morning where he's at. So, but yeah, we just got to this website. There's at least 3 of them that we found, by the way. And so here's woke it or worth it or woke. If it ain't woke, don't miss it. And Peter Pan and Wendy, it's my fucking cursor. It seems to be this one. This website may be the best one as far as like at least quality. The other one is complete piece of shit, like website quality.
Yeah.
So, you know, they got their metrics for it.
Okay.
You know, some of them, like the woke or not, is pretty lazy. The way that they, you know, just kind of slap a rating on there, whether it's woke or not, and don't really give much justification. This one
has little bar graphs or whatever.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I was curious. I don't know anything.
49% non-wokeness. How do you even quantify? It's like half woke.
I don't, you know. So I was looking into this while we were waiting, and while Bob was gone. This is fucking fascinating. So it goes on. It gives a little bit of context on Peter Pan. And then there's this disclaimer. I recognize that some of my fellow conservatives continue to pay for Disney Plus so that they have early access to classic Disney content. While others have sworn off Disney altogether, were it not for the fact that I review movies and TV programs, I would not put any more money into the Disney coffers. For those of you who are still on the fence, allow me to provide the following link as evidence that you should cancel it immediately and hop on eBay to buy some copies. Blah, blah, blah. Here is Disney's new satanic program offering. And guess what website that takes you
to? Of course.
Oh.
The Christian propaganda of bounding into comics.
In the last days, the final showdown between God and Satan will be imminent. That's how it opens the fucking article.
They're not usually that upfront with it.
Usually it's John, that moron John Trent writing the biblical scaremongering, but I guess they got
there's a couple of more.
Good old Jacob Smith.
I mean, it may very well just be that's John Trent true. He just wanted to make it seem like I don't know.
He might have told the guy to sell it. He's like, you got to sell more the Satan stuff. People love that.
And then it starts off talking about Strange World for some reason.
Yeah, they're really hung up on that movie. I guess one of the characters is gay. I haven't seen it.
Well, and then there's also
the teenage son is gay.
Oh my god,
they're of the woke race too.
Yeah, that's how you instantly can identify.
It is an interracial couple.
Oh god, yeah, no wonder Satan. Yeah. Over the last few years, Hollywood has promoted acts of demonic rebellion as harmless entertainment to be consumed by the masses, especially to younger audiences.
Demonic rebellion.
And one of those is Disney's Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. That's demonic.
I will say I don't know how to feel about bounding into comics. Obvious weirdo religious slant. I almost kind of like that they're mask off at this point. Because I see a lot of normies being like, "Wait, what is this? This is stupid."
Well, that's why we covered them a couple of weeks ago, and they took notice, and their audience took notice, and like, it's surprising that our stream video about it got really mass downvoted, which we're used to. Like, that's nothing new, but like compared to general, it seemed to be more. And I was like, at first I was like, wait, they don't even have a YouTube channel. I'm like, oh, that's right, because they're the literal propaganda arm of several YouTubers. Right. Yeah. So like it makes sense that a bunch of audiences would be coming to mass downvote us. And then so we responded, put out this kind of challenge thing. I saw it as an olive branch, a bit of a troll. But I was like, look, we want to be able to say that you guys are being honest. We like ethics and comics journalism, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so if you just put like up here on the header, just say, news, reviews, and rumors from an authoritarian Christian perspective, I think that would be, that'd be pretty cool of them, right? Like we're not trying to get them to stop making content or whatever. Just be honest up front about what you're doing, because a lot of people do share this shit without really looking at the articles, and don't realize. Like, I'm glad to hear that some people are realizing it, but a lot of people don't.
It's very insidious what these guys did. They realized there was a market for YouTubers reading articles, because it's the easiest form of content to make. So they're like, well, we'll just be the ultimate source for those guys to give them something to read. And then we slowly remind everyone that gay people are the spawn of Satan.
Yep. And so I don't know about this show. I hadn't heard of it, but is it literally a show about Satan is what I'm wondering.
A new German show called Pauline, who has a one-night stand with the devil.
Let's.
Are these guys unaware of like how much classic fiction involves interacting with the devil? Like,
I mean, there's literally a show about the devil solving crimes. So,
I mean, are they gonna do they want to cancel Tenacious D? They made a whole movie about rocking out with Satan. Like, what do you want? It's fiction, man.
I really do wonder, like, what is the point when that has to happen now and then, where like some of the people that are on board with this anti-woke shit, and then something will be like they'll be like, this is woke and satanic, and they're like, wait a second, what? I like that thing, right? Like,
yes.
It just seems like that must happen to some degree, where every once in a while somebody kind of.
Well, that's when these guys step in their own shit, like fucking what's his name? That guy Shadiversity put out his things. He's like, I'm gonna be a movie reviewer too, because all my idiot buddies are movie reviewers. And he goes, oh, that new Mario movie Peach is woke.
Mm-hmm.
And he caught a bunch of flack for it because that wasn't the approved narrative. It's like, no, this movie's an anti-woke triumph. You idiot! This movie destroyed the wokes.
I mean, originally, whenever Griggs covered the trailer, it was woke.
Yeah,
because Peach was wearing pants and doing a flip.
It was also funny with I think Andor, like Jeremy lost some support because everybody watched Andor and they're like, well, this is actually pretty good, man. And again, he had that crazy little rant where he goes, well, this is just diversity politics. How could you hire a Hispanic man to play Andor? And you go, well, because it's the same guy from the last one. What are you talking about, you psychopath?
Okay, so in defense, no, not defense, but just I was there's been articles where they will say something like, oh, it's the devil, and then you look into it and it's like not that, and they just have really reached for what they're calling it.
Yeah.
No, this show is actually about this kid that has a one-night stand with what turns out to be the devil. So
yeah, but I mean, I guess if you're a Christian, you could be offended by that, but supposedly this is not a Christian site, or at least they don't advertise it as such.
Right.
So why do they have a problem that fiction is exploring classic flirting with the devil themes? I mean,
yeah,
this has happened before.
The description also says the devil and Satan is a pretty specific thing, I think, compared to the devil. Like the devil can be not necessarily religious and more like a mythological kind of folk thing, whereas Satan is just Satan from the Bible, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. But then the review itself is pretty interesting because. So what if Wendy Darling was a selfish and disrespectful young woman who was great at everything? Peter Pan was a selfish jerk and borderline psychopath who regularly needed rescuing, and Tiger Lily was a magic ninja. That sounds awesome, actually. The magic ninja.
Yeah.
I'd have no problem with that.
Yeah, and it just goes on about that, the shit you'd expect.
I just want a spin-off movie of Tiger Lily as a magic ninja now.
Hell yeah. It's actually a cool ninja name when you think about it.
Yeah.
At this point, though, just finding one of these guys who can actually string a sentence together feels incredible.
It's true. Like
I'm looking at this, and I'm like, hey, this guy can write, though. So his brain is poisoned, but at least he's not like half these grifters where I'm like, dude, did you flunk out of like middle school? What is this?
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I said about bounding into comics, too, is that generally, like on a technical level, their stuff is written well.
Oh, yeah? They used to have some really bad writers. I haven't checked recently.
I think they've gotten maybe an influx of some dollars. Not sure where that comes from, but I think
at one point they were in the basement, the bargain basement.
Well, at one point they were, it does seem like it was a very specific point when they John Trent in particular kind of took a turn. Like there was a time when they were covering stuff in a slightly, I guess not so cringe way.
Yeah. Maybe he had a revelation and he said, I really got to help Christ or whatever,
Yeah.
He clearly had, I mean, he's always been a religious guy, I guess, but now he wants to spread the word by telling you that some stupid kids movie is is this the modern day proselytizing? Is like, that's how you win people over?
It's just, there's no,
man, I feel lost in life. And it's like, well, do you hate Star Wars? Yes. Well, I got the religion for you, buddy. How sick is that?
It's fucked up. Like, yeah, and in fact, like, man, I mean, we were aware, and we kind of already planned on talking about it at some point that like bounding into comics had kind of become this source for these guys and stuff. But like, it was like you sent me some stuff at one point that it was like really highlighted how egregious it had. Like, I didn't know that they had become so openly fucking just Christian fascist.
Yes. No,
I
but that's the
didn't-
thing is people don't like notice. I don't know, man. I'm like terminally online and I hate all these guys to death. So I'm always checking in on what they're doing. And they post, I hate liars. You know, I hate guys who just their job is to lie. So when they go, hey, I think I saw they posted an article and it was like, this actress says it's good to be gay, but actually, Satan, you know, that's the work of Satan. And I'm like, what the? And I start digging into it. I think you can just go on Google and search bounding into comics. You know, what's that horrible, like sodomites? And you'll get
God.
like 100 results at this point now. And you're like, okay, these guys have lost the plot.
Yeah, if they ever had it, right? Like in the
And because YouTubers have no ethical standards whatsoever, if you were a professional, you know, newsroom, you would say, obviously, we're not going to use this Christian propaganda site as a first party source. Like, just find, if I really need to report on this article, I will just find a different place to go. But, you know, I hear from all these guys, they go, well, you know, if they have the news, why shouldn't I be able to use it? I'm like, because you're promoting fascist bigots. Like, because then your audience goes, oh, what a cool news site. I should go over there and learn about how gay people are the spawn of Satan. Like, you are indirectly helping make that popular. But, you know, none of these guys have any. I 100%, I think back in the day when they first started, I might have occasionally went, okay, here's bounding the comics. They suck, but they have the news, whatever. But then I went, no, will never use these guys again. This is insanity. You know, if I have to use like a screenshot of theirs, I will pull it up separately.
If you go there and you just search father, right? You'll just get all of these. Like, this is just a handful. Like the first ones I grabbed, just like Archbishop Jose H. Gomez theorizes that new social justice and woke movements are pseudo religion. Like, what the fuck does any of this have to do with comics? I guess you know. I guess if you think that it's all woke, then sure. But like, you know.
Well, I got to stay up on my Jose H. Gomez news.
Right. That's the most. Even if you are anti-woke, like, who the fuck is this guy? Yeah.
I love Father David Wilton. He's one of the classic fathers. It's like, you know how many of these guys there are? They're all saying stuff. It's not a news article when they say it. It's
just like, it's, you know, they have a title. That's like basically asking some random cop his opinion on crime or something like that, right? Like,
yeah. It's like when they do those articles like, professor says this, and you're like, professor of what? And it's like mudslinging at Ohio U, and you're like, okay, not useful information. Yeah, we live in a quagmire of misinformation and hatred, and I'm glad you guys just talk about it. I don't know why other people aren't talking about it.
Oh, I can tell you.
It's not popular on YouTube.
It's
not popular on YouTube. You're right. People don't click on it, and everybody's trying to make money, and I get it. You know, I try to make videos about it here and there when I can, when there's truly egregious examples that drive me nuts. You know, like everybody flipping their minds over a Bud Light can having a trans lady on it. It's like, this is didn't a bunch of kids get shot yesterday and the day before and the day before? Yeah, but this Bud Light can.
Well, they only care the one time that it happened to be a trans person that did it. Then they really care about the shooting.
Oh God, they're all up in arms, and then it comes out that a Nazi did it, and for some reason they're like, no, that guy wasn't a Nazi. I'm like, wait, why are you invested in defending the Nazis? That was really confusing. When all these guys are like, no, that's a false flag. Those tattoos are fake. And I go, why do you need them to be fake?
I think it had to do with the fact that, like, they couldn't decide, do we want to say that the Tim Pool stuff wasn't real, or that he was watching Tim Pool and lives of TikTok, or do we want to say that, you know, that he wasn't a Nazi? It's like, you know, get on the same page, guys.
Yeah. Tim Pool straight out coming out and saying stuff like, well, that's a fake social media profile. I go, oh, one of the biggest YouTubers is literally lying about mass shootings now. That's cool. That's like super healthy for the space. And I got torn open by his fans for being like, hey, Tim, you say you're a journalist. If it's fake, you should probably have evidence. You can't just say it's fake. That's fucked up.
I mean, at this point, I don't think he gives a shit at all, if he ever did. But like, I made this.
This is not a conservative show.
Anyway.
Yeah, he's not conservative. He just agrees with them on everything. Yeah.
Is that a weird coincidence?
There's a lot of guys like that. Eric July, I'm not a conservative, guys. I'm not a conservative. You're on the Blaze. Shut up.
Yeah. Dude, he likes to downplay that. He got really like, I don't know if you've seen that clip that I've tried to make it go around as much as I can. The where Bob debated him, and you know, and he's like, "What's up with your, you know, you're working for the Blaze and stuff," and he's like, he gets visibly uncomfortable, like having to answer for that, right? Like it seems like he had a little nervous tick that appeared in that moment.
Well, also because I'm confused about what's happening there. Because does he appear on their network? I don't think he does.
He does sometimes.
Sometimes, but like kind of like he doesn't have like his own show on there.
I'm not sure. I feel like.
Well, but they have like a picture of him in the lobby, so I'm like, well, that means Glenn Beck is funding something. Is he funding your YouTube channel? Like,
yeah, it honestly
part of
I
this.
mean, it seems like that, but
I think Glenn Beck must own part of his YouTube channel, or at least have given him, you know, some funding with the expectation of some sort of return or something.
Well, there was a point like 4 years ago when he's always been, you know, have cringe takes and stuff like that, but like a point where his shit shifted dramatically and like he became much more hyperbolic, much less nuanced with his takes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where originally there's that clip of him saying like 4 years ago that, you know, yeah, there's a lot of characters basically talking about woke versions of characters or whatever, and that, you know, most of them are bad, but Miles Morales is actually the exception because he's his own character. He's got his own story. He's not the same thing as just a black Peter Parker. And now that's exactly what he says, is that he's a black Peter Parker and shit. And that, like, it's, dude.
I have to wonder what caused the shift there. And it can't be the comics because, if anything, Miles Morales has just gotten more nuanced and more interesting. So,
yeah, I mean, I think we probably all know what caused that shift. We just can't prove it, so we can't make that claim.
I mean, I guess he figured out it's profitable, but
well, I mean, 4 years ago. But what I'm saying is that like that around that time was whenever he started working for the Blaze,
right?
So it seems like, you know, with no evidence whatsoever except for just looking at timelines and statements, it seems like it just Glenn Beck has said, "Hey, do what you're doing, but harder, and here's some money." You know.
I think your cat's gonna steal the show.
Yeah, well, Scraps decides that she belongs everywhere for some reason. Hi, Scraps. I have to keep moving my keyboard because she keeps trying to lie down on it.
My
Scraps,
cat is
stop.
He eventually learned I can't have him on my lap whenever I'm streaming, so he thankfully doesn't normally try. But.
Yeah, Scraps has learned no boundaries in her short life. Get out of that. That's candy. You're not gonna eat candy. You're a cat. Crazy kid. Anyway.
Yeah.
And I also, a thing Eric July does is he gets he finds these very stupid things to argue about, and then will claim that you're wrong, where he goes, I didn't do a crowdfunding campaign. And like, but you did. So no, I did a pre-order campaign. You're like, right, it was a crowdfunding. You're like, that's what crowdfunding campaigns are. Some people have their product more farther along than others, but it's still considered crowdfunding to put up a thing.
He likes to make up his own definitions for shit, and then he'll act like everyone else is fucking crazy whenever they try and point that out.
Yeah, like he uses the word token wrong, and you're like, well, you're using that word incorrectly. He's like, no, it's a token because this. And you're like, okay, well, that's a new fun version of the word you've invented.
Right.
And you're technically correct according to your definition of this fun word you like. A lot of these guys do that. As they go, yeah, these movies, again, with this, I can objectively evaluate art. And I go, explain to me how that works. And they go, well, you use this criteria. And I go, okay, well, it's objective to the Mahler school of film theory.
Yeah, we have to agree on that criteria.
Yeah, exactly. It's not objective to the human experience. This is your criteria.
I mean, like, we've talked about how it could be argued that, and it's still not accurate to say that, but like, it's more objective if you're talking about the film craft. So like, you know, just the technical aspects of filmmaking, right? That could be considered more objective than the writing or something like that. But even still, those are just generally the preferred, you know, agreed upon, you know, best methods. They're not really objective, right?
Right. It's objective according to modern film theory, is what you would say. Not objective according to the artistic standards of the human experience.
Someone comes along and does it some new crazy way, and that becomes the new fucking standard. Then it's not objective, obviously, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
I can say objectively you broke the 180 rule, and that's considered a no-no in filmmaking. But I can't tell you it makes your film worse.
The rule of threes or something.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to break the rules and have it actually result in a better film. And the rules are not set in stone.
True. Yeah.
Lie down, Scraps. Anyway, well, I'm excited to be making a comic.
Yeah.
I'm excited to finally be creating stuff.
I
complain about media a lot. It's hopefully going to have it out by December is my plan right now.
Yeah, I mean, we were looking at it yesterday a bit, and like, there's a noticeable quality when it comes to like Comicsgate. Like Comicsgaters, most of their shit is trash, just bad. It looks bad,
Yeah.
Then Eric July's shit isn't bad. It just like is nothing. Like it has no fucking personality or.
It has no style. It's very generic. I mean, Eric July. I can say this about Eric July. He knows how to pay people money to get decent quality out of them. I think the ultimate thing that I say about ISOM is I go, okay, well, yeah, you can pay an artist, you can pay a letterer, and you can pay a colorer. But if it's your book, what are you doing? You're the writer? Okay, then I'm going to judge it on the writing.
It wasn't.
The writing's not there. I mean, I looked at all the campaign stuff before it came out. People are like, well, why were you mad before it even came out? I'm like, well, I wasn't mad. I just looked at the campaign that seemed like it was, again, written by a middle schooler. Or it's like, on the worst day of his life, ISOM meets a family friend, but then there's a different family friend that she's with Darren, and we don't like Darren. I'm like, this sucks. This is your hook? This is your pitch?
I mean, have you seen some of those clips from Bob's debate where he was asking him about his motivation and stuff like that?
Yeah, I saw some of that.
It's amazing. It's just like basically his character motivation is he didn't want his mama to get mad at him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's why he became a hero?
Yep. Well, I mean, that's why he was apparently was already a hero, but of course we don't get a flashback of that. That would have been the way to open the comic, by the way, is like a flashback of him in his former glory days, and then you flash forward to him like retired and not wanting to be a hero anymore.
Yeah,
right?
have one page of him on TV or some newspaper clippings or something, and maybe there's some of that scattered around.
But take our word for it. He was a hero at one point.
Yeah, that would have honestly, it's interesting. Like that's your hook. Now that you mention it, is like great hero, beloved by everyone, mysteriously retires, forced to come out of retirement for some dumb, stupid reason, and then gets
mom's gonna get mad at him.
Yeah. Yeah, but ultimately, and again, the book is like 100 pages long, and like, how do you get 100 pages in? You should be able to tell 2 origin stories at that point. And I ask people, I'm like, well, what'd you learn about ISOM in those 100 pages? They're like, well, I don't know. He fought some guys, I guess.
And, what are his powers?
What are his powers? Yeah.
He can't fly.
He seems pretty strong. He can't fly. We know that.
Yeah.
And again, look, it's fine to have
flies.
It's fine to have some mysteries. You don't have to show us all of ISOM's powers. You don't have to tell us his whole backstory. But people should come away from. I ask people, I'm like, well, what's the hook? What are you excited to learn more about? The only answer I ever got is that like some mythical rock band shows up in the last 2 pages, and they're like, "Oh, I want to learn more about." Yeah, and I'm like, I want to learn more about them. No, Alpha Core's the green guys. There's like this band at the end.
Oh god.
Yeah. And they're like, I want to learn more about those guys. I'm like, not ISOM, we just spent 100 fucking pages with. I'm like, again, like how long was the debut issue of Spawn? Spawn was what, like not even the first issue, like 30 pages. You get everything. He's a demon from hell. He's got a gauntlet with the time's running out. He's only got a certain amount of psycho power or whatever. It's like
there's 4 pages dedicated to him falling, basically. Like whenever he first of all, like he goes to the thing and he gets his ass kicked basically at that club or whatever. And then as he's thrown into the air, he just happens to collide with the woman who's flying by.
And fights her for no reason.
No reason. And she like throws him down. And that's what I mean. Like there's like 2 full page spreads of him just falling. And it's like, you shouldn't call this 100 pages, man, whenever you're using a page for a panel, right? Like,
right. It's just one.
And that's the crazy thing. Like, You could do a thing where he's falling and you're getting flashbacks and stuff like that. You're learning about him, but instead he's just falling. There's nothing to it.
See, you're saying that's actually really interesting. Yeah, if
That
he
sounds
kept
good.
flashing
Yeah.
back, like he gets hit in the head and he remembers the time Captain Meteor like punched him and it's like a black and white panel. Like, yeah, that would be interesting. I go, oh, what's going on there? What happened to this guy? Yeah.
Learn anything about him. Yeah. But no, yeah, back to your comic, man. So what I was trying to say was that yours actually looks fucking interesting. It's got life to it. I don't really know the plot or anything, but like just looking at it, it seems more interesting. So
yeah, I mean, I've put I mean, I can tell you real quick, the basic premise is that there is a multiverse. And this is I read a lot of Japanese comics. I'm sure you guys have not heard of a comic called Bokurano. Don't worry about it. I stole it from that. Anyway, there's too many multiverses, right? And they're all plugged into the same cosmic circuit breaker, and they keep, new ones keep getting created. And if they keep getting created without going away, it's just going to overload the circuit breaker, and all realities will perish. So there is some mysterious multiversal agency. We don't know how they choose worlds for cancellation or whatever, but they do. And they send their agents in to basically kill whoever is the primary hero of that universe. The way universes are structured, they always need a central heroic figure that acts as kind of like like a power conduit or like what do you call it? Antibodies or whatever. It's like their first line of defense. And if that guy dies, normally in the universe, the power of the chosen one passes on to somebody else in the universe. So they always have a chosen one. These agents have the ability to basically disrupt that protocol, kill the chosen one. The power does not transfer over, and the universe goes, I don't have a primary hero. Collapse. I'm done. Okay. And basically, so the main character is a world ender, and he doesn't like being a world ender. He doesn't remember how he got this job. It's very much a comedy, like a dark comedy, where he's like, okay, I'm ending worlds every day. I'm getting my ass kicked by supernatural beings from across whatever. And he goes, all I know is if I kill 100 of these guys, it's over. I get to retire. I can go home. So I'm just going to focus on that. I'm not going to think about the fact that I've probably killed a billion people at this, several billion people at this point. Yeah. And it's just him like going through the motions of, I have this job. I get dropped off in a universe. I kill a guy. I leave.
Punch in, punch out.
Punch in, punch out. Because that's the only way he can, psychologically cope with the horrible thing that he's doing. And then on one of these missions, he meets a girl in a diner, kills the hero, and then he's like, all right, I'm out. She's like, what do you mean you're out? He's like, yeah, your whole universe is going to collapse. I got to go. And she's like, fuck that noise. No. And jumps in the portal after him. And he's like, no, you can't do that. Stop. And normally the portal, they're traveling through interdimensional space. She's like, this really hurts and it sucks. He's like, yeah, it's going to rip you to pieces, you idiot. Like, I have special shielding and you don't. And but then she's getting torn apart. He starts, his heart starts breaking, and he has a weird flashback to this girl he used to, a previous agent he used to know, his secret mystery or whatever. And he goes, oh, God fucking damn it, am I really gonna do this? And he goes to his little robot buddy. He's like, can you register her as my sidekick? And the robot's like, yes, sir. And because she's a sidekick, now she can survive traveling through the multiverse, but now he's stuck with her. So it becomes this kind of like Rick and Morty dimension hopping thing where, each issue or arc is going to be dealing with a different hero, and they can go to different universes. They can go to like a sci-fi universe and fight a Luke Skywalker Jedi type or whatever else. And this guy has no real powers. All he has is a ray gun that basically can hold up to 3 bullets. 1 bullet will kill like a typical hero. 2 bullets will kill a Superman. And if you need 3 bullets, you're in big trouble. So it's all about, and it takes a while for the gun to recharge. So really, it's all about coming up with tactics of like, okay, how do you shoot a speedster? They're faster than the speed of light. Like, what situation do you put them in that you could possibly, with your rinky-dink little shitty ray gun, actually be able to take them out and move on with your life? So that's kind of the main, focus is, like a sliders kind of universe going around different things.
No, it's actually like already more interesting than Isom. Like, no,
yeah.
I've read
about the character.
Yeah.
It's got a hook. It's got characters, and again, it's supposed to. I'm a comedian. I like funny books. It's gonna be a mix. I'm a big fan of like Japanese manga, and I think they do a great mix of comedy and action. Where you look at stuff like One Piece, which is obviously very comical, But even like more technically serious stuff like Naruto and Bleach, which were huge, are very funny comics. And then you kind of get attached to the character through the comedy. You go, oh, this guy's fun. He's funny. I'm rooting for him. I want him to succeed. And then when it gets kind of serious and it gets into the action and people are dying and the blood's flying, you're like, oh my God, I'm worried about this guy. He's my little comic relief character. I don't want anything to happen to him.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of precedent for comics like that are like, and it sounds like you've got the right kind of I guess tone for being able to balance those things, comedy and giving a shit, right?
Well, Rick and Morty does that very well, where
So I'm sorry, my girlfriend is dealing with some shit. I'm gonna have to call her real quick, guys. So
no problem.
I'm sorry, I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem. I was gonna say that I think part of why people have gravitated to Rick and Morty so much, and my book is not like as silly a comedy as Rick and Morty, but I think that people like this mix of like humorous characters and you're having fun. I think The Boys is the same way, where like if The Boys is funny and like a lot of the time there's a lot of really funny stuff in The Boys, but then when it suddenly gets serious and the characters are up against the wall, I think you grow very close to these characters through the comedy and the likability of them. And it plays well when you want to like, pivot suddenly and you're like, no, they're actually in trouble now. Like this is serious. They might die. And I find that juxtaposition very fun.
It's actually one of the great things about comedy, because when you laugh, it's like you feel relieved. So it loosens you up. So like then you can hit them with like a gut punch, and it's like they'll just hit you a bit harder.
But it's also like you think about Spider-Man, who's always cracking wise and making jokes. And but then there's always that fight where he's really getting his ass kicked, and suddenly he's not making jokes anymore. And that's when you're like, oh God, this is serious. Spidey's in trouble. This could go bad. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's Spider-Man's a great example, because Spider-Man was always a hilarious character and always cracking wise. And I think that's part of why he's one of the most enduring characters. Same with like Deadpool. When I really think about it, like the characters that people like, a lot of it is like the humor and the comedy that comes along with them.
Yeah. Well, that's what makes him very relatable. Lots of times. Yeah. They're great.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated with I mean, the medium is comic books. They're rooted in the idea of comedy. And I actually think that is kind of a thing that's missing from West. Like I'm a big Japanese manga guy, because again, I just think these books are hilarious. I laugh my ass off reading some of the weird stuff out there. I don't read as many Western comics because I think some guys have done well to like kind of mix the two, the comedic aspects and the action aspects. But I think there's less of it. I think, and especially, we talk about like this crowdfunding thing and the Comicsgate stuff or whatever. A lot of guys are just hyper focused on, I want the most badass character. He's a tough guy who doesn't take no shit. They're name's
like stuck in their early 90s, right? Like that kind of mode. I mean, I have to quibble a little bit, because the it's kind of a misnomer. Comic books, it's not. I mean, it is in large part rooted in the comic strips that they were originally. The first comic books were just the reprints of comic strips that they wanted to make more money off of. But I mean, like, as far as being like sci-fi and stuff,
obviously they don't have no. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, quickly we grew beyond the term comic books. It's just, the roots of the medium, if you really look at it, like the original, comic strips and whatever else.
I mean, I think there's
newspapers to try and give you a laugh.
The beauty for comic books, is just like that. It can be anything. It really is. There's no fucking limit to what it can and be, and except for what people can make of it. And that's why it's good. Like your plot is, and that's really is the kind of only thing that can be told in comics, right? Like, imagine trying to get a movie made with that plot, right? Like when you're crossing multiverses and shit like that, and just the premise itself.
Animated series someday, I think. Sure, but movie's going to be a lot harder.
And that's what comics have become in a lot of ways too. That these Comicsgate guys don't. They acknowledge it, or they'll even say it, but it's like they don't want to accept it in a way like that. The purpose of comic books is changed. Like in a lot of ways, especially Marvel and DC, it's kind of become a proving ground for adapted media, and like I don't think that lessens the whether they're good or not. There's good comics and there's bad comics. There always has been. In general, I think some of the best comics I've ever read have been produced in the last few years. Certainly the time that Comicsgate started, that era of Marvel was pretty fucking, and so like in that way I can kind of like see where, all right, yeah, you kind of had a point to a degree that like they were temporarily, introducing a new Asian Hulk and Black Iron Man and girl or whatever, and like also taking that original character out of the story for a while. But any comic book fan knew that they were going to bring those characters back, and that there's not going to be any overall.
They're not going to replace any. This constant like, oh, they're going to replace. You're never going to see the original Superman anymore. It's only going to be his gay son. You're like, guys, they're not getting rid of Superman. Don't be stupid. Honestly, I wish they would. I mean, I'm one of these guys. I always go, well, Batman just retire and let someone else be Batman. Like, I know everything I've ever needed to know about Bruce Wayne at this point. I can't imagine reading another Bruce Wayne story. But I know other people clearly disagree with that stance, and they want to know more about Bruce.
For a while, DC used to do that a bit, like they did with Flash and Green Lantern, and then they just decided to revert it back.
Yeah, they didn't stay the course. They had Kyle Rayner, which I still think is cool.
He was my Green Lantern when I got into comics. That was he had just become Green Lantern. I was like,
and now you like don't you never see Kyle Rayner anymore? They're like, he's off saving the galaxy. I'm like, dude, where's Rayner?
Because they somehow successfully managed to rehabilitate Hal Jordan after his whole genocidal, thing like that.
After he murdered an entire city. No, it was Parallax. Whatever.
Right.
Don't worry about it. And you're like, oh, this is that's again. I'm a big manga guy because, well, I think one problem that the modern publishers have is they just don't want to pay money. It's like you're never gonna get like a huge like. Maybe some of the top guys at like Marvel and DC are getting paid a decent wage, but yeah, it's like, oh, why does this Robin book suck? And I'm like, I don't know, man. They're paying the writer probably like $5,000. Like,
I agree generally that like the creators are not treated the way that they, especially when it comes to like royalties and rights and shit like that. They're fucked hard. But I'm not saying it's a good excuse, but it's always been that way. I covered the original, Superman comics back from 1938, and like I traced what happened with Siegel and Schuster, and they were fucked hard, man. Like the guys that created,
so bad.
Superman. When you consider how profitable he's been and how many he's basically was the Big Bang of comic books, right? Of superhero comics, anyway.
Yeah.
And these guys just basically died broke and penniless. And if it wasn't for the fact that they had a lawyer fight for him, essentially. They would have. DC was trying to get it to where their names were never included in terms of Superman.
Right.
So like, yeah, it's fucking absurd.
Dude, they had to wait until like the Superman movie was coming out, and then finally everyone's like, "Hey, a Superman movie's coming out." Meanwhile, the guys who created him are broke and penniless old men.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and they were like, "Okay, we'll give you guys $40,000 a year to just shut up about Superman."
And they eventually raised that to like 60 or 80, but then that was it. Yeah, it's
still not enough. They should be making $1 million a year. It's crazy, if not more. Yeah, I don't know what you do with Western comics. I mean, are you guys reading any Western comics right now? Like any modern?
I do.
Yeah. Well, like, what do you pick up?
Or do you
use the digital app now?
Yeah, I typically don't buy physical media. Physical comics very much, unless there's like a really special thing that I just want to own a copy of. But like, it's just cheaper too, man. And anyway, So since House of X, Powers of X, this era of X-Men is some of the best superhero comics I've ever fucking read. Like, it's amazing.
The X-Men stuff does sound pretty interesting. All the Krakoa stuff.
It's I could gush about it forever. I'm not going to do that. So, but also, Marvel's hit or miss. But they've always been that to me. Like, there's definitely recently they had an event that was actually good. Their event comic storylines are often kind of like a little forced and like, oh, we got to do an event now to spike sales, and it feel a little kind of pointless. But this one, it was called Judgment Day AXE, and it was very clearly done to, we got to get the Eternals and the Avengers and the X-Men all in one story that matters to all of them, right? And it's but it's actually fucking well written. I would recommend to anybody who wants a big Marvel event. Other than that, I'll typically just kind of check out a thing here and there and drop in on a arc or so. But I don't have a lot of money to spend on it either. So
yeah. Worry that like Marvel though still isn't doing enough to get like new readers. Like, I think if you went to a kid and you're like, "Hey, you got to read this," and they're like, "It's what? It's the Avengers, the Eternals, and the X-Men." You're like, "Oh man, that's a lot of lore that I do not know anything about." You know?
Well, see, like, I mean, I actually had a, you know about comicbookherald.com?
I think so.
He has a website. It's this guy has a website that just it's the reading orders of basically everything.
Yeah.
So if you want to know where to start reading something, it lists it all. And I've heard that a lot, like this complaint that like, oh, it's so hard to get into, and I didn't quite understand it because from my perspective, I've been reading comics since I was like 7 or 8. So to me, I don't get this that perspective, but I wanted to so that I could help people understand how to do it. So I brought him on like a couple weeks ago, and yeah, he kind of helped me understand a little bit what I was missing, which is basically that it seems like you need to know more than you really do if you don't know better, right? Like, but really the reality is most, like Marvel comics, for instance, and DC generally too, if you start reading at number 1 of something, and they do go back to number 1 a lot these days, then you're going to pretty much be able to follow along. You don't need to know every bit of lore that's happened. Like if it's a new creative team and it's a new run, right, then it's generally going to start you at a point when you're like, it's going to tell you what you need to know. And if there's anything from previous, then there often is that you either need to know or could know more about, it'll tell you where to go for that. And the fact that when I was coming up, we didn't have YouTube and comicbookherald.com and shit that, like, if I wanted to know what was going on, I had to fucking figure it out and chase it down, right?
Yeah.
You got Comics Explained and Comicstorian and stuff that'll just tell you the whole fucking plot of everything that's come before. So I feel like if you're properly motivated to get into something, then you can do it. But
I'm just thinking more about like younger generations though, where it's not so much the motivation, but like I don't know where, like you would think that the movies would be like a launching off point where they're like, oh, hey, I don't know, Captain America. But is there even like if you send them the comics, it feels like a completely different character almost.
I mean, I don't necessarily feel like that. Yeah, it really is the writer, but like to a degree, I could see that. But like, it's more like and by the way, like, they want to talk about how comics aren't selling well or whatever, and they're typically pointing at individual sale, like monthly comics, right?
Yeah,
like
graphic novels sell like crazy.
Right. Those monthly periodicals, they're dying, man. Like, there's no doubt about that. But that was always kind of like, honestly, whenever they started doing digital media, comics and books at all, and there was a lot of people kind of predicting the end of the comic book industry back then. And I'm surprised that they still sell physical comics at all at this point, really.
I am actually wondering, like, I always get like mixed messages. Some people will say, oh, the sales are in the trash, and then other sources are like, no, the sales are great, everything's fine. It seems like maybe the industry is just like moderately healthy. Like, it's not doing gangbuster sales, but it's also, they're not going to go out of business anytime soon.
Honestly, like the thing is these guys have in their mind of, they'll think of the early 90s often and how well it was doing. But you got to consider the context of it was not healthy. Despite the fact that it was doing really well, it was not healthy because it was a speculator boom.
Copies of one book, yeah.
And it's honestly better that it's growing like 2-3% a year or so, than anything else. Because obviously it'd be cool if it was better than that, but like it's not losing anything. And then this whole, I'm curious what you think about it. The comics and manga thing, like as if they're at odds with each other and as if they're somehow competing. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that is kind of a manufactured narrative. I mean, it's like, do you care more about Marvel than Kodansha because they're Western or whatever else? I don't know. I think there's always this thing that whenever a Japanese thing comes in and does very well, that we're supposed to be like, oh, the American car companies must feel ashamed that Toyota is doing so well, and it's like, nah, there's probably room for both, man.
Yeah, it really is.
Also, I look at the Japanese comic industry and I go, yeah, but they treat those like, you think we treat our writers and our artists bad? Like, we don't enslave people to make the freaking comics,
True.
Yeah,
I haven't looked into that. I should. Somebody mentioned that one time, and I haven't looked into it at all. I was like, holy shit, what?
Dude, they work them to the bone, and they get paid like nothing. It's crazy. And the guy, everybody goes like, well, One Piece is fantastic. Why don't we make stuff like One Piece? And then you read about the guy, and he's like, I sleep 3 hours a night. He literally sleeps 3 hours a night. He takes 1 day off a week, and the rest of it is just drawing that comic.
But hey, it's caught up with Superman in terms of copies sold.
And you're like, yeah, I guess if you like want to die at age like, that's the other thing. If you want to do a great video, all the manga artists who have had to quit because their doctors are like, this is killing you. And like, you don't understand. Christ. I have to meet my deadline. There's so many manga artists have like just straight up died pushing themselves to these crazy weekly deadlines. Where I'm like, in America, I'm like, yeah, you can do one book every 2 months. That's fine. I don't care. Take all the time you want.
You don't have any job security or anything. You don't get rights to anything that you create that ends up becoming a multi-billion-dollar movie. That sucks. But yeah, at least you're not fucking dying in your chairs or drawing.
Well, they don't get that. They definitely don't get that in Japan either. They get also really terrible deals. So yeah, that's the thing. You can go, well, manga's killing it. And you go, yeah, but it's a predatory industry that is, destroying the creatives who work for it and probably needs a union.
Manga's killing comics, but it's also killing its own.
It's also killing the creator. Like literally, some of these guys are just not gonna make it, man. It is a tragedy. So, well, but I am a big manga fan. So I do think there are lessons to be learned from manga and stuff I would like to see Western comics incorporate more of. But yeah, it's not like manga has definitively won. It's like, no, they're two different tastes, man. It's like some guys want a big American pickup truck, some guys want a compact, little Japanese racer. So.
Well, I mean, and until there's something that shows that there is any reason to think they're at all, because like really, they act like they're in competition. It's like, yeah, manga has it's like 3 million% a year in increase in sales, right? Like it's a lot, like and good for them. I don't really read it, but I'm not against it. If but like also comics increases, like I said, a couple of percent at least every year. So it's like really, if anything, it seems like maybe superhero Western comics benefit from manga doing well. Like there's no evidence to support that there's any
I wish Marvel had done more. Weren't they doing like some manga versions of their characters at one point?
At one point, yeah. I don't know why they stopped really.
It just seems like a natural thing is like, there's a lot of Japanese artists who I'm sure would be happy to, honestly, Marvel would probably pay them better and give them a better schedule than their Japanese bosses. So I think that would be a great way to bridge the gap. And
I think they generally try to see themselves and be a leader in terms of like setting a trend for comics kind of thing. And they're often not doing a great job of it, but sometimes they do. There's some really great creators working right now. I believe it's probably one of the best times as far as like the number of creators who are just generally doing great work as like maybe the 70s or so was for Marvel. But yeah, I don't read much DC. I just generally don't. I love the characters. I love Batman. I really love a lot of fucking DC characters. Just the stories don't resonate with me as much.
I just felt like DC's problem was that the characters are just a lot more powerful than the Marvel characters. And I was like, I think you got to take them on more fanciful adventures. Like, I want more space stuff from DC. Like, these guys should be trekking around the galaxy and going on Star Trek moral adventures. The
Supergirl movie that they're doing apparently is based on a pretty well beloved, more recent Supergirl story that's her going around in space doing different adventures on different planets and stuff. So
nice.
See how that goes.
I think that's the way to do it. It's like Superman. Oh, I'm going to stop another earthquake. It's like, yeah, all right, get out of here. go use your powers on for something else.
So when does the comic come out?
My plan right now is to get it prepped for December of this year. It's going to come down to right now. I think there's a lot of like print backups, so I'm a little bit worried about that. I don't know how early we're going to have to get it to a printer in order to make that date, because some printers it's like a 2-month, 3-month waiting period to get anything made. But hopefully we get it to the printer ahead of time. Right now we're like halfway done with inking the thing, and we're still figuring out some stuff in terms of exactly how we're going to color it, but I'm talking to a guy about that. But ultimately, we did a ton of pre-production work, so we had all our ducks in a row. The script's all good. The artist is chugging away. He's a great guy. Keter LeBeau, based out of Mexico. So we're just going through and really figuring it out.
Sweet.
But I mean, I definitely don't want to be one of these campaigns that goes on for like 2-3 years. I'm like, no, we can get it done. I'm going to knuckle down. Everything's going to be great.
I mean, at the very least, if things come up, just, be open with your people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Honestly, the holdup right now is me, because I'm doing the stubborn. Again, I talk about like I'm a big manga guy. Most comics, I think pretty much all Western comics, the writer just hands a script off, right? He goes, go draw. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I got like some gags in my head and like panels that are going to be funny. I want to make sure you get it, exactly. So I'm actually storyboarding every page myself as we go.
That generally, like the better ones end up, creative teams to at least have a dialogue as they go forward. But
yeah, no, I mean, like, there's a lot of conversation, but I'm legitimately like going and like every page being like, okay, this is what I envision. He's here. And so far, it seems to be working out. It's just, it takes a little bit longer because I'm not the greatest artist.
I would imagine some artists are probably cool with that, and some probably really aren't. I would imagine, like someone might be like, "Oh yeah, thank you. I don't need to think about it." And then some are like, "No, I'm telling me what to do."
I think he's pretty happy with it, maybe too happy, because I'm like, "Hey man, you can play around with it." He's like, "No, that was great. It's great. Let's do it." I'm like, "All right, well." We might get to the point. It's also a thing, it's our first time working together. And like he said, he doesn't really have a lot of experience with like doing like the comedy side of things and like reaction faces and whatever else. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I hope we like settle into a groove where maybe I can do less storyboarding and he kind of will understand more what I'm trying to say when I put it together. We'll see. It's a fun process. Point is, I'm taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. You should get it done, man. Right now is better time than ever. There's so many artists around the world. Again, this guy's based out of Mexico. Like in a previous era, I would have no way of finding this guy or even knowing he exists.
It really is just capital on my end. Like if I had the money to pay an artist, like I was telling the other day a story about when I was younger and stupid. I had a great idea and I was like, oh, I'll just find an artist and tell him, look, we'll make this, and if it's successful, you get 50% of it. And then it's like I didn't realize yet that you shouldn't fucking ask an artist to work for free.
No.
So nonetheless,
if anything, I make sure, you got to pay people good, and you want to be able to pay people good. I definitely understand the capital thing. I don't understand some of these campaigns that go, we're going to make a comic for $2,000. I'm like, how? What are you paying that guy? I definitely want to make sure all my guys are paid good. Because I go, man, I wouldn't draw a comic for $50 a page. Like, you got to pay more than that. What are you talking about? So yeah, it is a money thing. It is interesting. Some people ask, like, well, why aren't you selling your comic for $5? I thought comics cost $5. I'm like, it costs $5 where I can sell 100,000 copies. All right, if I'm only selling 500, I got to pay these, my artist and my colorist and all this other stuff.
Well, and also then you'll be able to, take the total and compare that to, other like regular comics that do sell for like $5 a piece and say that you won.
Yeah, right? And make an exact comparison. That's how it works. God, those ISOM numbers are still a little suspect, but
I can't help but think that, and that's the thing is like I predicted before that one even came out, I was like, but when number 2 comes out, it's not going to do as well. Number 3 is not even going to do as well as that, right? And that's probably still the case, but we won't know because he's gonna, even if he's not like making numbers up, he's still going to inflate it with merch shit. And he acts like it's all the same thing. It's
okay, but he's got a lot of employees, and you can't pay employees based on subterfuge and cotton candy. So true. I think he's got a nut up or shut up look. Maybe it's possible that he finds a way to make this an enduring and iconic character that people are gonna love. But as is, I'm like, this guy can't write. He doesn't have any ideas. And I think even the audience, when you really dig into the comments, people go, hey, did you read ISOM? What did you think? Yeah, I really liked it. 7 out of 10. You're not going to make another $2 million if you keep putting out 7 out of 10s from your biggest supporters are giving you the 7 out of 10.
And you just ask them what it is they like about it. Like I've tried to find, and like a lot of the conversations have to do with just owning the left,
owning the libs. Yeah.
And it's,
what do you like? It's not woke. Oh, well, thank God. I can't believe it. Guys, I'll tell you this.
Put me to sleep, so.
Yeah, my comic book, I don't think there's anything woke in it. I don't even know what that means. But, if you want an anti-woke... I mean, if Mario gets to be called an anti-woke masterpiece, then I am confident in saying that my comic book is also
I don't know, that girl character,
anti-woke masterpiece.
Girl character sounds kind of like a Mary Sue. She's able to jump through the portal when nobody else has done that before. Come on.
She immediately starts getting ripped in half.
But she doesn't. But she doesn't.
Yeah. Because she uses her Mary Sue charms to convince. Anyway, guys, the comic is called Super Killer. It is currently available on Indiegogo, and I hope people will check it out. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm actually surprised that I'm able to get people to back it, despite being one of these guys who calls out these grifters and these morons constantly.
Well, that's something we wanted to talk about. Are you cool with a few challenging questions here?
Yes, go nuts. I am an open book.
Cool. Because and I've asked you before, I have to side-eye people whenever they are messaging me, generally, like anybody, because I've gotten some weird attempts by, anti-woke, anti-fan type people to try to, essentially deceive me into being they're thinking they're friendly and then whatever, because a lot of people really hate me. It's weird.
And I'm going to make the argument that like Organized Chaos, you started following me and I went, oh, this guy's going to fucking hate me. I sent you a message. I don't know if you got the DM. I'm like,
yeah, no, I saw that. I almost replied, but
I don't know if I'm your type of guy. I'm going to tell you right now. Like, I am a comedian. I say, edgy, subvert. I don't know. I don't want to call myself edgy. Yeah.
That's not, there's definitely a contingent of the left and this kind of impulse for some people to kind of just take shit to absurd degrees. And it's like, I say, I guess what you call edgy stuff sometimes. I've especially lately, for some reason, I've been slipping the R slur, which I don't like to generally, but I've been saying it. It's still in there,
happens.
Yeah. But so I mean, really, just you're more kind of a point of fascination for us, I guess, because it's like trying to pin down where you're at. You're not somebody that comes off, obviously, like, you're not just firing up the camera, calling everything woke. I remember my first experience with you was when I was on Matt Jarbo's stream, and I knew, he said you guys are cool, and then you had your She-Hulk review up. And he was like, let's go watch his She-Hulk review. And and you kind of, you were like, I don't really like it. I don't know. And then after a few minutes, you're like, I don't know, it's just kind of woke. And then, me and, Jarbo especially, he was like, that's a fucking chud opinion, and he was like, fucking.
Did I say woke in the review? If so.
Eventually, yeah. But that's what I mean. Whereas, geeks and gamers would just immediately go, this woke trash and blah, blah, blah. So there's like a clear distinction there.
Well, I'll say this. When the word first showed up, it was honestly more preferable to, because I will never say SJW, the term social justice warrior. I'm like, that's stupid. Shut up. You all use it constantly. So whenever there's like a new word that kind of explains, like people were like, I don't know, obsessed with politics or whatever else. There was a brief period of time where the word woke had yet to become like the everything is woke, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can use this word to kind of explain that general sense of like, these politics are a little too obvious, or like, the writing is more focused on the politics over, or again, it's an impossible word to define,
right?
But again, I had to take it out of my vocabulary because people took a term that maybe could have been like a sparingly used thing to be like, it's a little bit woke, but whatever.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like in that review, you seemed hesitant to use it, but eventually you did kind of settle on that. And it's like, just because you were talking about it's got its feminist stuff, and it's like, I see that. I see why if you just are opposed to that or you think it's heavy-handed, that's one thing, but like, we debated Adam and Sitch, right?
Yeah.
And they're like telling us that basically Sitch was trying to connect it to fucking Marxism and shit, that She-Hulk was talking about her experience as a woman and that's Marxist or some shit. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
I never follow any of the Marxist arguments or whatever. Again, my thing, bizarre. I always come at this from the perspective of like a writer, and I do think as a writer, I do it myself. I wrote like a novel and I started putting all this weird communist shit in it. And then my buddy's like, bro, like this is too much. I'm like, yeah, all right. This is me, the writer, trying to like spread my great ideas or whatever, as opposed to the character doing it.
It's so, just, it really is.
I was more worried. I was like, I felt it detracted because I'm like, all your haters are going to be out here waiting to tear this apart. And it almost felt like the point she was making about, well, I'm a woman, so I can control my anger. I'm like, I don't even think you need to make this point. I don't know. It's hard to exactly nail down.
I mean, I think that and that's one thing we've talked about. We argued it with them too. We don't need to relitigate it, but I mean, I think there was kind of a misread of that, and in some cases, I think intentionally, like, just to say that. I mean, for one thing, the people took issue with her saying that women have to worry about being assaulted, kind of thing. And it's like, have you ever talked to a woman? Because it's kind of true. A lot of women will tell you the same shit. Like, when you look at the sexual assault statistics and stuff, like makes sense.
Yeah, no.
That,
but I think, as I mentioned, like, I agree with that. Yeah, that is a real concern. The problem is that I go to watch Marvel movies and I don't want to think about sexual assault or Marvel TV shows. And that's where I went, this is just like, yes, it's a serious theme. And like, I respect serious themes. And this was like a serious, but again, it's about a lady who turned into like a green monster. And I don't want to think about rape right now, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
I guess that's
like,
more the perspective I came at it from. Maybe it's realistic, but.
And my thing is that it is. These are perspectives, right? Stories are perspectives. They're through the perspective of the writers and stuff. That's what a character, a good character is. And sometimes it's done well. If you want to say that it wasn't done well, like, I'm not going to argue with that. It's not objective, obviously. But like, I think that there is a space it should be a space for, a lot of women did like that. Like women I've talked to, women I've seen around, were like, it was great to hear that presented, right? Like as a topic of a regular, just a show. And it's something that doesn't it's like, okay, good. Even if I found it, I don't really think it was too heavy handed, but still, like, there was some stuff later in the season. I can't remember what it was that I was like, but anyway.
I think my frustration was that I went into it being like, this is going to be a hilarious, fun court show. And it very quickly got like serious and
it definitely subverted. Yeah. It was not what I
and I was like, oh, this is like absolutely not what I want. But I think I even said in my review, I'm like, this will appeal to some people. It just doesn't appeal to me.
I think you did. And that's fair.
If I called it woke, that's probably incorrect. I mean, like, talking about those topics, I don't know. It's just always going to feel weird for me, again, with like a character like She-Hulk, which I always think of as kind of goofy and funny. And then suddenly, like the first episode, I'm getting hit with, you don't know how hard it is to be a woman, and we deal with misogyny all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I know. This isn't fun for me. That was my take.
That's fair. I mean, I think that like what they're generally going for is like, when it's easy for us as guys, I think, to take for granted that a lot of the stuff that is usually in these shows and movies is catered to us. These guys, chuds, want to talk about, they're pandering. And it's like, yeah, they've been pandering to us this whole time. Like now they're just pandering to other people too sometimes. Like,
I think She-Hulk is a great female television show. Honestly, I'm going, this is definitely for women. Like, a lot of women are going to be happy that She-Hulk, hooked up with Daredevil, where I'm like, I want to see him fight more, So,
I mean, now, how would you have felt if they'd actually had like a sex scene though? Like when,
I mean, that's also my man brain is I just want She-Hulk to be picking up men and cradling them like little babies. And
same, dude. That was what really... That sold me on the show when that trailer had her carrying that dude. I was like, oh my god, something just awakened in me.
I wanted more of that. That's my problem though. Is I'm like, I don't think you're gonna get too much of that either. You get a little of that.
But anyway, She-Hulk, man, that's just one of those ones that they really got success on that one, right? Every once in a while, these guys will Last Jedi, Rings of Power, it just becomes the new thing. They're able to hit the algorithm with it. But
yeah. It's infuriating because then they won't shut up about it. And you're like, oh, God.
So we were looking at like some of your content and stuff yesterday. And like, you were on OAN the other day. Did you know that?
Wait, was I?
Yeah.
Wait, what do you mean the other day?
I don't know. It seemed like it was posted like the day before yesterday, I think, on OAN, where you were talking about like the guy was showing you a Sam Smith Satan.
Okay, yeah.
Influence thing.
I did that. Yeah, that was a little while ago. It wasn't too recent.
Okay.
That was like a couple months ago. So what happened was after I went to the did you see my Dave Chappelle thing protest, whatever the hell?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So Netflix had a protest against Dave Chappelle, and I went and we said we like jokes, and it was a whole thing. Anyway, after that, I somehow ended up on the list for all these like weird right-wing news sites because they were the only ones who wanted to talk to me about it.
That's weird how that happens, huh? Like just when something like that pops off, they're like, let's get this guy.
Get this guy. Yeah. So now occasionally when they want a comedian to comment on something, I guess I go in, but I don't even remember what I said about Sam Smith exactly.
Well, I think it might've been from a longer segment. We only just watched like the couple of minute clip, and like, so to your credit, I was worried at first. I was like, oh no, Vito was on OAN. And then the guy's like basically pushing satanic panic shit. And you kind of dodged it. You didn't, I was like worried you were going to feed into it, but you kind of dodged it. But I do kind of have to wonder, because you told me specifically that you don't like all this religious, fascism shit. Is it just like, is that just you don't want to ruin chance to be able to go back, so you didn't push back on it, or?
I think it's that I find it really. It's honestly not that deep. It's just like I find it really funny that they bring me on thinking I'm gonna like reinforce this like hyper conservative narrative, and I go, yeah, it's kind of weird, huh? He's like a devil. You know?
Yeah, it was a decent sidestep. I'll be honest, but yeah, I was.
If anything, it kind of sucks the. Like at one point they brought me on to talk. It was for the thing they were like mad. They're like, I think it was OAN. Like back when the protest happened. Like we all know Netflix is awful, you know, with movies like Cuties and blah 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 blah. And I went on, I'm like, you know, I went out to support the Netflix organization and great movies like Cuties and whatever else. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but guys, I'm kind of trolling OAN. Don't let them know.
Okay. we will not air this portion as long as
you can air it. No, I have a buddy over. I mean, look, here's the thing: is I don't even know what to say. I find it. I don't know what they're doing now. Was OAN one of the big like, you know, Trump stole the election networks? I think they were.
Yeah. So I looked up yesterday to make sure, because that was another part of it. I was going to ask you. Are you anti-Trump? Or you never really on board with Trump? Or
anti-Trump 100%.
Because that was what, you know, and hopefully you understand, like, without the context of what you're telling me, I kind of get it now. But like just looking, it kind of seems like a hypocrisy, right? Like, because you were saying I was pretty sure you're anti-Trump, but these guys literally, you know, were the first ones to air his speeches and shit in 2015, 2016. They were the first ones to take him seriously, and like, so in a way, they're kind of responsible.
In a way, I think OAN is just like a dead. I don't know. I've been on some weird programs that I don't agree with. I went on InfoWars at one point, and I hate InfoWars, and I hate Alex Jones. But you know, as a comedian, you go, well, I mean, I wasn't on with Alex Jones, by the way. I was on with one of his lackeys. I go, I do a podcast where I complain about all these guys. And I just know it's going to be funny if I'm on there and we play the clip. I you know, again, I don't endorse any of these places. It's just me going, it's kind of funny that I can go on here. And,
I guess I can see that, to be honest. Like, and if, you know, really look, if you're taking up a spot that otherwise they'd have some fucking.
Otherwise would have went to a crazoid who would have said that's Satan and he's going to kill babies. Sure. If anything, I'm like happy. I've been on a couple of these things and I have kind of been able to be like, well, I don't think it's that bad. You know, I can see where you're at, whatever.
So, well, in the reverse. So, like in that regard, I think I can. I don't know about you, Bob. Like, I kind of, I feel a little bit better about that. But when it comes to like the reverse of you being a host, so you like had Ethan Van Sciver on your podcast.
Yes.
And then other than that. You were the one that, by the way, that turned us on to Chrissy Mayer, and I didn't know about her connections to Anthecumia, and you know that was probably where they got their connection to Gavin McInnes and shit like that. And we did a whole episode talking about that shit. So thank you for that. But like, you had her on your podcast like before you told me I should cover.
Well, what do you call it? I have a co-host, Dick, and we'll have on. You know, it's the kind of thing where I can't dictate all the guests, and I don't hate Chrissy Mayer. I think Chrissy Mayer, you know, I've had arguments.
It's okay, so it's not about it just having her on. It's like you. I'm pretty sure, Bob, you looked through it. Like you didn't really push back on much, did you?
Well, we're doing a comedy podcast. I mean, I did push back. I asked her, like, do you legitimately believe that Satan is like, what do you call it? You know, trying to manipulate children or whatever else? She's like, yeah, and I'm like, well, okay. You know, like I fundamentally disagree with like the whole Christian conspiracy theories about like.
Fair enough.
Yeah, again, like we're doing a comedy show. Chrissy Mayer was in town. She was supposed to do Dick's show, but she couldn't do it. So he's like, can we bring her on Biggest Problem? And she's somebody who on the show I've complained about constantly. So I'm like, yeah, you know what? For the sake of the show. Here's the thing. The world of comedy is like, it's a little bit different. It's like, yes, I might have ideological disagreements with these guys. Same with Ethan Van Sciver. Like, you know, he's like a hardcore Mormon guy. I disagree with his like weird religious views, especially when it comes to... I don't feel like
his shit is informed by Mormonism very much, to be honest. Like,
I don't know what it is. I think a lot of these guys are really opposed to like, you know, gay stuff. I think that they use their religious background specifically to justify that stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously it helps that they're conservative, but at the end of the day, Jesus has told them specifically to hate the gay people, and that the gay people are gonna, rape their kids and whatever else. So, but we brought Ethan on. Like, I want to talk to this guy, and sometimes we get to talk about some of that stuff, and we got to have a discussion about, what my problem is with Eric July, and that was a big part of the show. And I think that had value. Is like that's kind of what I wanted to get at, is that I'm a big I think at the end of the day, like Ethan Van Sciver, I can't deny that the guy's a good artist. He seems like a competent storyteller. I haven't read a lot of Cyberfrog or whatever else.
Nobody has. He hasn't put much out.
But ultimately, I go, if this guy, and I believe in independent creators, I really do. And just the fact that Ethan is out there being independent, even if I hate his politics, I have to go, well, it's good that he's independent and he has the talent to put something out. And as far as I know, Cyberfrog is not a political book and does not tell you your kids are going to get, molested by the gays or whatever else.
Well, if I can tell you where we're coming from with this, is not obviously not trying to cancel or like put you on the spot, ambush you, shit like that. So, it's more like, so I'm not against having just outright having Ethan on your thing or anything like that, or Chrissy Mayer. I just believe in responsible platforming. And so that's why we're doing this, is because we wanted to talk to you. We wanted to let you promote your book, but also, whenever there's something that we want to address, wanted to hear you out on it.
Well, do you think Ethan is what is Ethan's greatest transgression?
My problems overall is that, there's just plenty of, I've got videos on it. There's so many documented instances of him leading harassment campaigns against people. He doxed a former fan just like 3 weeks ago. And he's flat out said, "Oh, they're not a fan anymore. I don't fucking care." And he doxed him on a fucking stream. And that's just the most recent thing. But he's, okay, so if we're not talking about the bigotry and stuff, you mentioned him being an independent creator and respecting that. I respect independent creators too. We hear people, Eric July fans, saying, "Oh, you're just against." No, but the thing is, they suck up so much of the oxygen that people don't realize there's a shitload of other independent creators, and they present themselves as the independent comic book creators, right? And that if you don't like them, you don't like indie comics or creator-owned comics. When that's just fucking, I've said before that if they all drop dead tomorrow, those guys, the indie or creator comics industry, culture would not even flinch, because there's so much of it. And it's they don't promote those. They don't promote the other ones, or, and they, by behaving as if they're the only ones, it creates that false narrative kind of thing. Yeah. And so that's in a way, they're not pro creator comics. They're pro themselves. And, and then other than that, just lying about the state of things and lying about what's in comics. I've covered a few times where him and Eric July both they'll put out a video Joker's pregnant, this new woke comic or whatever. And it's a comedy issue that's supposed to be stupid.
I hate that stuff.
And I think it just fosters this fucking hostility towards comics. That's if people want to read these comics and go, I don't like them, that's fine. But in almost pretty much every example, if these guys don't actually read comics and they're just kind of literally sucking the information out of these YouTubers and calling themselves comics fans, and it's fucking bizarre.
I guess for some reason, I just don't see Ethan on the same level as some of these other guys like Ryan Cannell, Geeks and Gamers, who are out there every single day being black actors are bad, gay actors are bad. The left
Ethan is smart. Ethan is smart. I'll say that. He's smarter than a lot of these guys, and he will couch a lot of his stuff in irony and shit like that. And he's also gotten smarter about his optics over time. But yeah, he in the past.
Well, that's the thing, is that maybe in the past he's been very inflammatory, but as of now, the stuff I see from Ethan, it kind of seems like he's not. I don't know. Clearly he's if you're really in the Western comic space and you care about that, he's clearly on to be number one. I guess I'm just not as ingrained in that space, so I'm not as worried about him and what he's saying about it, if that makes sense.
Well, so for instance, he was on Tim Pool obviously a couple weeks ago, and he was pushing this narrative about strange women coming into comics and saying you can't do this and can't do that's just not even remotely what happened or what has happened. It's literally about on an executive level, saying, hey, we need to expand the comic book demographic, because if we don't, we will die. And it's this self-contradictory position they hold, where they're we care about the industry. The industry's dying, and then they're like wanting to, criticize them for not over sexualizing women as much, right? So that actually maybe women or girls will want to read comics. And
I think the thing is, like, I agree with you 100%. I think the things Ethan says about the comic book industry, like, I fundamentally disagree with like his theories about why comics are failing or not making enough money or whatever else.
But so he has influence, though. That's the issue is that he has influence and he creates these narratives that has an effect on the industry and, the fandom in particular, which is my main concern, is the environment.
If Ethan was out here like making videos saying like, we can't have black characters or gay characters or whatever else, I don't see, and I'm sure he's, towed the conservative line on some of that stuff.
He has
go
said
ahead.
that, though. Yeah, I mean,
he does that a lot. I mean,
and that's
I watch him regularly, but
that's the implicit thing. Whenever anytime there's like a new black character, legacy character that's introduced or something, like a version of whatever, despite the fact that legacy characters have existed forever, except when they're white, he didn't say anything, right? Like that's the implicit thing, is that if this is woke and bad and this is why they're failing, he doesn't have to say, I don't like black characters, right? Like that's the message that he's conveying whenever you repeat that kind of thing so often.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, my relationship with Eva Van Sciver is adversarial. It's like, how you got like these guys and you go, look, man, I think you're fucking nuts. I think the things you say are nuts. But I do get something out of arguing with you about it. Like, I want to convince you otherwise. I want, like, for some reason in Ethan, I go, I think there's like a semi-moderate guy in there who was just pushed over the edge by all this Trump bullshit. I think Trump made a lot of people go fucking crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Like I was a fan of his back in the day. I was into Green Lantern, in the era he was drawing it and shit. And like, I was a fan. That's why I kind of ended up where I'm at, because I watched him and this is before Trump, definitely Trump came along and did what he did with a lot of people who had some biases, but generally didn't express them much. But Trump basically comes along and goes, no, it's okay. You should express those biases. Right.
Yes.
And that's what happened with him. He just became worse, but he was, he likes to say he got fired from DC because he's a Trump voter. No, there were several examples. It happened repeatedly throughout the 2010s where he would say something, borderline and sometimes over the line, racist or misogynistic on Facebook. He would get called out for it. He would apologize and time would go by and then he'd do it again. And again, you know what I mean? It just happened and until finally, basically, I think it was the kill yourself one that eventually did it. I'm not sure. Where he was like, posted a meme of some dude hanging himself, and he was like, this is the part where he pees, and he's like telling some lefty to kill themselves. And DC is a corporation, right? Like he's representing them. His name is attached to them. So of course, eventually they're going to be like, look, man, you can't.
You can't. I totally agree that if you're like a super political guy, you probably can't be working in these mainstream things. Yes, speech has consequences. I guess, look, I look at like some of these guys again, like a Ryan Cannell or like a Jeremy Griggs, and for some reason I just go, these guys are unsavable. They're dumb. Okay, Ethan strikes me as not a dumb person.
He's not dumb, but I do think, to be honest with you, I think that he's not savable. I think that he is ideologically he's got some kind of personality thing that. I just know too much about the guy to think that there's anything.
Yeah. But let me say this: if I bring a dumb bigot on a show, I think it's fair to go, "Why? What are you getting out of this? All he's going to do is be a racist moron." When I bring an intelligent, I'm not going to call him a bigot, but a guy like Ethan who clearly has a brain in his head, but just has been led down the wrong path. I think we do get good conversation where I go, well, here's why I fundamentally disagree about why you think Eric July. He told me on the show, he's like, well, you need to if you really care about independent creators, you need to get behind Eric July. And I said, Eric July, is making this whole space toxic. He's,
Can I show you? Did you know that Eric July learned a lot of what he does from Ethan? Like he was basically kind of a protege type. But can I show you a couple of clips?
Sure.
All right, so Bob debated him. And when I say Bob, I mean Organized Chaos here.
Who?
Yeah. The guy that's being too noisy over there. You're saying too much.
I know.
Bob, shut up.
I need to shut up. I'll be quiet.
So here's it's a couple of just clips from his debate with Ethan. And so you say that you can have a good conversation with him, and I don't deny that you can. But if he believes that you are an SJW, which he basically believes anybody who doesn't think that he's the greatest.
And can I make one real? Can I make one real quick point about this podcast I do? So the podcast I do, it's me and this guy Dick Masterson, and Dick Masterson is a Trump voter. He's like a famous, did this misogynist character on Dr. Phil, and he has on his own show. He's had like the January 6 people come on and be like, oh, we were just walking around the Capitol or whatever else. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the theme of the show is me like a hardcore liberal and Dick like a weirdo conservative moron. And then we fight with each other for comedic effect. So when I bring Ethan on, it's not like, it's less of, hey, this is an endorsement, and more like, this is the show. We're just going to kind of bring people on from across the political aisle. Now, obviously, if I bring on David Duke, it's going to be a problem, and it's not justified from either side. I can understand saying like, well, Ethan is so toxic that he should not be allowed on any show. I think he squeaks under the bar for this, again, very like political podcast that is about liberals and conservatives having these kind of arguments. Same for Chrissy Mayer. Is like, I fundamentally disagree with Chrissy Mayer. I hate the things she says, and I think she's weirdly a Christian bigot, has these weird biblical ideas. But I want to bring her on so I can argue with her.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Again, we're not trying to like put you in trouble.
No, I just want people to understand what the format of the show is, because it's not like, hey, Vito brings on his friends.
No. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think that. Like, it was, it was definitely a point of curiosity whenever I started seeing, like, wait a second, But I was hoping that it wasn't the case that you were just fucking snowing us or something, like, I don't know. I didn't think so, but it's still kind of confusing.
I have so many things that I want to argue with Ethan Vinchai for.
I am I guess a leftist. It's like I didn't even think about stuff that way when I started making YouTube videos. It's like my values are what I developed, right? My values are such that like I believe in fucking empathy and like what's best for the most amount of people, kind of thing, and like and it's like that ends up putting me in a position where like, oh well, the left is I guess where I belong. So it's like, I'm just, they like to say ideologically or whatever. And it's like, I don't really have an ideology except humanism,
Yeah. I just want to say, like, I totally understand the responsible platforming argument. And if we brought Ethan on to just go, Ethan, you're the greatest, tell us all about how you're going to fix comics. Well, I'd be like, yeah, what the fuck am I doing? But luckily we were able to like have some fight and, talk about why I think he's wrong.
To be fair, we haven't watched that, so we might check that out. But like, yeah, it's to me, it's just I know as much about it as much as I know about him. I don't think he's, at least with me and a lot of people, like with Tim Pool, he was completely dishonest. So it's misinformation in that way. There's several things he claims he made. They're just,
he does have a persona. Yeah, he is a bit of an actor in his way.
So I mean, when's he not acting is the kind of the thing. Like here's this. It's presumably if he goes to debate somebody, he's going to be working from real positions and stuff, right?
I said, Marsha, I don't know why you're doing what you're doing.
So you know about the thing with Darwin Cook and Comicsgate years ago?
Refresh my memory. I remember.
So Darwin Cook was fantastic fucking creator, artist, and he died young of cancer.
Yeah, and he was like gonna ink his art or something.
No, that was a different situation.
Okay.
No, this was they started claiming, and they do this. They'll claim that so.
They claimed he was
Comicsgate, and that puts if there's somebody's alive, that puts them in a position to either come out and say no, I'm not, which they then make them a target for like an enemy for like criticizing Comicsgate, or they have to say yes, I am, and it's kind of fucked up that they put people in that position. But yeah. So this is Bob kind of addressing that.
But out of Darwin's memory, I am not going to fight back. If you feel the need, because she blamed me for that, and she tried.
And his widow like came out and was like, no, he would not have been cool with you guys, kind of thing.
I had to call a harassment army, the likes of which I have not experienced before or since, against me, saying that I was claiming her husband, her deceased husband, Darwin Cook, was Comicsgate. That was a lie. Well, I didn't say that. Mark, understand, you people lie. I did not say that. Billy did.
So have you ever said that he's Comicsgate?
No.
So you've never
I'm not saying it now.
Comicsgate?
No.
All right, this is interesting.
I don't
Here's a
think
tweet
so.
from you. Have fun scraping work in a dead industry that if you suck enough corporate dick, you'll be able to earn in a lifetime what I earned drawing frogs independently. By the way,
and that face right there to me is Ethan Van Sciver. That is what he's really about, to be honest. Like that's what you say is acting, if he is okay, but that's to me just generally who he's become.
Ethan is a manipulator. He knows how to play the game. And all these guys are doing it. They know, it's hard to keep track of the receipts and it's hard to keep track of who's saying what. And again, I would love to fight with him about stuff like this.
I've just made it my kind of personal mission to make sure, because there was a couple years ago when he seemed to be trying to clean up the Comicsgate in his image a bit. I think he's kind of given up on that. He's realized it's a lost cause, but like, I
don't know where he's at with Comicsgate. I think they're kind of falling apart. Sadly.
Yeah, that's not really like looking at their metrics. They're they get fewer books out, they get fewer dollars for their campaigns. It's generally not good. But there's
never associate with a group, because then the group doesn't get their books out on time.
Book out? Do we know? Did he?
I don't think so.
His Cyberfrog book is out, but I checked on Rainbow the Brute today, and that's like a year and a half. Wait, it was supposed to come out December 2021.
Yeah, it's like almost 2 years old. Yeah, 2 years.
2 years.
And it's like, it'd be one thing if he just was fucking honest about stuff, but you can tell he just makes up excuses, and like making up excuses for why it's late, and then the reason it's late is because he's constantly streaming and getting fucking super chats. That's really what it boils down to.
I mean, yeah, it really, like he knows how to make a comic. He's used to make them all the time. He's having too much fun.
It's really just about, to me, like being fucking honest with what you're doing, I guess, and like and having to go against playing the victim while being the bully really pisses me off when people do that. You know what I mean? Like, and he does that quite a lot, which is kind of just what Trump does, for example. Like, it's a very common thing with these guys.
Oh, that's always the most hilarious thing about conservatives. They're always complaining about victimhood culture, and I go, you guys elected the ultimate victim, Trump. He goes, oh, the media is so unfair to me, and the elections are rigged. It's like, you guys love victims. What are you talking about?